Hello, this is the trouble spot video about the omission of that. And so let's get started. The uses of that include for noun clauses, which can include introducing noun clauses, which follow certain verbs, adjectives, or nouns. That noun clauses are the most common types of noun clauses. They function for that subordinates, and they have noun clauses to the main clause, which serves to introduce the noun clause. In verb clauses, there are some verbs that need an indirect object before that to introduce the noun clause. There's verbs plus optional indirect object sentences, and there are verbs plus to plus optional indirect object sentences, and there is a be plus adjective plus that noun clause structure. Some examples include Carolyn saw that the assignment was due, which is where it comes after the main clause. There's Dilma assured Dr. Marshall that she would submit her trouble spot on time. That's where the verb plus the required indirect object. And then there's Hannah wrote Dr. Marshall that she needed help. That's the verb plus the optional indirect object. Shanaz was happy that class finished on time. That's the be plus adjective plus that noun clause. It was Deborah's idea that we have a pizza party. That's the noun plus that noun clause. That's kind of the most basic one. So one of our questions is, can you come up with an example of a noun plus that noun clause? I'll give you a minute to do that. Also, another question is, what is wrong with the format of this be plus adjective plus that noun clause? If you need a minute to remember. The sentence is, she had been nervous she would miss her flight. I'll give you a minute to answer that in the chat. So for some ESL struggle points in the use of that, they struggle to remember which verbs take which pattern. Sometimes they incorrectly insert to before the object, and they also sometimes forget to insert a required to before an optional indirect object between the verb and noun clause. Some examples include, Roy told to him that he had a problem, which, as you can guess, it should say, Roy told him that he had a problem. And the other example is, he explained me that he could help. It should say, he explained to me that he could help. So the first example says it's an extra to. They don't need the to. In the second example, they don't have the to, they need the to. And so one of the questions here is, what can you do to help ESL students overcome this struggle? I'll give you a minute to write some ideas down in the chat. Another question is the following sentence a common ELL mistake? I told him that I needed help. I'll give you a minute to write yes or no in the chat. Simple base verb in that noun clauses, which can also be referred to as the subjunctive. This is used in formal English. This is certain it plus be plus adjective sentences that need the simple form. This is a form without any inflectional endings and a verb not part of a to infinitive. So some examples, Barbara recommended that I eat. Dr. Marshall thought that I should apply for teaching jobs. In the omission of that is introducing the noun clause, can be omitted when the noun clause is in an object position. It comes after be plus adjective complement position. It cannot be omitted when the noun clause is in the subject position. It is common in spoken and informal English. When you're teaching the omission of that, you want to consider whether or not it is confusing to the meaning of the sentence, and whether the inclusion of that makes the sentence too wordy. So you use discretion in teaching the usage of that. And I forgot to add a slide for the examples, but some of the examples would be um, in the omission of that, when the noun clause is in the object position. Let's discuss some of the examples in a few minutes after the video is over. And then we'll do some of the questions. Some more examples of learner errors include, I came to see that you know he is here. She talked him that he could help. And then I'd like you to give an example of a learner error in the chat. I'll give you a minute to do that. And then we have some questions. When is it okay to omit the that? I'll give you a minute to answer that as well. When must that be used in a sentence? I'll give you another minute to answer that. And that's the end. There wasn't a lot on this topic, so that was about all I had for you.